Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 51 of Diehlman at Halftime, the NBA podcast that tops all others. I'm your host, Larry Diehlman. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome aboard, and if you've been a loyal listener, welcome back. We have much to get to today and not a lot of time to do it. We have 5 sections that we'll get into: a general overview of the NBA this week, and our usual highlight, lowlight, random stat, and game of the week. Let's get to our content for the week. The NBA saw a seismic shift on Saturday night. Dallas Mavericks superstar Luka Doncic was traded to the LA Lakers for Anthony Davis. As they say in the military alphabet, whiskey, tango, foxtrot. If you don't know what that means, look at the first letter in each of those 3 words. You'll get what I mean. Dallas sent Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris to LA. The Lakers sent them Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first-round pick, and the Utah Jazz were the third team involved, receiving Jalen Hood-Schifino from LA, a 2025 Clippers second-round pick, and a 2025 Mavericks second-round pick. Reports said that no one saw this coming, including Doncic and Davis. Neither requested a trade. One report said that Doncic's conditioning was becoming a major concern for Dallas, and they no longer viewed him as the franchise cornerstone. I'll have more to say on this next week for our trade deadline special, but there are no words for this news. Another deal dropped on Sunday night. Sacramento Kings guard De'Aaron Fox was traded to the San Antonio Spurs in a 3-team deal that netted the Kings Zach LaVine from Chicago. Fox and Jordan McLaughlin went to San Antonio. Sacramento received LaVine, Sidy Cissoko, 3 first-round picks, and 3 second-round picks. Chicago got Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, and their own 2025 pick from the Spurs. The Fox trade rumors have been floating around, especially with the Spurs. Well, here it is. I'll have more to say on this next week for our trade deadline special. Oh boy, here we go again. We might have a sequel to the Jonte Porter betting scandal. Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier and then Charlotte Hornets guard is being investigated by the feds for unusual betting patterns during a 2023 game between the Charlotte Hornets and New Orleans Pelicans. Rozier played just under 10 minutes, left the game due to a foot issue, and remained out for the season. Charlotte wasn't in playoff contention at the time, so being out for the season wasn't unusual. However, fans thought the prop bets for Rozier that night were questionable. A few sports books took down the prop bets hours before the game, despite Rozier not being on the injury report. One bettor even posted that he received insider information about Rozier being subbed out early on. The bettor profited $100. Porter was recently banned from the NBA for life after subbing out of games early so that bettors who took the under would win bets. If this Terry Rozier thing is anything like the reports are saying, this could be a major factor in betting moving forward. Having 2 people potentially being involved with this is not a good look for the NBA and sports in general. This episode is entitled Domino Effect. So, who's raising eyebrows at the moment? Let's go to our highlight, the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is the time of year where contenders start to solidify themselves while pretenders start to fizzle. The Cleveland Cavaliers chose the former. The Cavaliers are 40-9, have the best record in the NBA, and they're on a 4-game winning streak. They are on pace for 67 wins after posting 48 last year. It's crazy to think that Cleveland essentially has the same roster from last season and they're this good. As in, they didn't add LeBron James in free agency or something. Donovan Mitchell is averaging 23.7 points, 4.3 rebounds, a little over 4.5 assists, and 1.4 steals per night. He and backcourt partner Darius Garland make a great combo. Dealing with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen in the paint is a nightmare for opponents. The bench unit has good shooters. Outside of the lineup, switching out J.B. Bickerstaff for Kenny Atkinson at head coach was an underrated move. My main concern is whether they can dominate like this in the postseason. Even though it was Boston's year last season, the Cavaliers struggled in that second round series. We'll see if they can copy and paste their winning ways at the end of this season. Their next game is tonight, Tuesday, February 4th at 7:30 p.m. They will host the Boston Celtics. Let's go to our low light, the Chicago Bulls. What a fall from grace for the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls are 21-29 and 10th in the East. The Michael Jordan days seem like 100 years ago. While their NFL counterpart Bears have optimism going into next season, the Bulls, Before his departure, Zach LaVine was the star in Chicago, averaging 24 points, 4.8 rebounds, and 4.5 assists per night. The Windy City has been in a tough spot. They have pieces on the team like Lonzo Ball, who came back from a 2.5-year injury absence, Kobe White, and Ayo Dosunmu. The Bulls even got a young forward in Josh Giddey from Oklahoma City at the cost of all-defensive player Alex Caruso. However, something just hasn't clicked lately. They have 2 playoff appearances in 9 years, the last being a 5-game series loss in 2022. The Bulls are actively trying to trade starting center Nikola Vucevic. Over the years, they've had Jimmy Butler, DeMar DeRozan, LaVine, and who could forget about that 1 year of Dwayne Wade. For now, Chicago is barely hanging on to a play-in tournament seed. If they trade Vucevic too, the play-in tournament might be out of reach. That might be a good thing, though. Their next game is tonight, Tuesday, February 4th at 8 o'clock. They will host the Miami Heat. To get more insight into our low light this week, we have our 5th guest on Diehlman at Halftime Season 2. Let's get into it. So for our 5th guest of Season 2 on the Diehlman at Halftime podcast, we welcome Derek Jones. Derek works in a variety of roles at Rowan University in Glassboro, New Jersey. He is the radio station manager at Rowan Radio 89.7 WGLS FM and an adjunct instructor. Outside of Rowan, he is a play-by-play broadcaster for ESPN and the voice of Princeton University men's basketball. Derek graduated from Rowan in 2001 with a degree in radio, TV, and film, and he earned his master's in public relations in 2002. Derek, how are we doing today?
Great. It's awesome to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. Still have contact with the radio, so it's always good. All right, so Derek, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Chicago Bulls. They are our low light for the week, and they're trying to make themselves a playoff contender. So my first question for you, what are your thoughts on the Lonzo Ball situation? So he came back from injury after over 2 years on the bench, like just a mysterious injury, and he was practicing, and then it was a setback and all that stuff. He's still 27 years old. Should Ball be part of Chicago's long-term plans, and have you ever seen a situation like this?
First of all, it's a wonderful question as far as whether he should be a part of what they're doing moving forward. I think there are situations a little bit I think you can draw from with injuries and things like that are a little similar, but I think whenever you're dealing with a star who's in and out of the lineup as a whole, I think it makes things very hard. And I think it makes things very difficult for you to kind of figure out what the future of your team is. And I have to be honest, I mean, I don't think he should be a part of their future moving forward. I think anytime You're dealing with a player that is coming off of a knee injury. He's a veteran. I don't trust where this is going for the Bulls, but I think the bigger picture for Chicago is where are they at as a franchise? I think everybody in the East was in a similar space about 5, 6, 7 years ago. To put a pin on it, everyone's waiting for LeBron to get out of the East. And I think a lot of teams, whether they want to or admit it or not, were trying to figure out the best way to put themselves in position to succeed once the playing field got a little bit more even, a little bit more level. And we've seen some teams excel and some teams not. The Celtics were ready, the Sixers were not. And not by their own fault, but a lot of bad luck. But I think the Bulls are one of the teams, then we'll certainly dive into it, that we're not ready for it. And as a result, I think they're going to have to look long term at maybe what this team is going to become, because I don't think ball is a part of their future. I really don't. I mean, comeback aside, I just don't think it's something that long term is best for business for them.
Yeah, some good points there. And he started his career, well, not career, but his tenure with the Bulls, a hot start, and then all of a sudden the injuries and, like I said earlier, just like setbacks and back and forth, and then he finally makes a reappearance. But I mean, this Lonzo plan might be like 3 years too late. And it's interesting too. He's bounced around the league a couple times. Lakers, Pelicans, Bulls, definitely an interesting situation. I don't think we've seen a situation like this, at least in modern times. Like maybe Derrick Rose, but
Right.
at least in recent memory, like the Lonzo where he's out. Derrick Rose at least played. He wasn't as good anymore, but Lonzo being out for 2 whole seasons and more was definitely a concern.
1,000 days. It's over 1,000 days in between games for him.
Jeez, wow. So next, in the offseason, the Bulls traded defensive-minded Alex Caruso to the Thunder for Josh Giddey straight up. Looking back on it now, who won this trade? Do you think Chicago should have received more since Caruso made two all-defensive teams while with the Bulls? I was surprised it was a straight up trade, even though Giddey's young and Caruso, he's not going to give you 20 a game, but he's still a great defensive player. He's come off the bench for the Thunder now, so should they have gotten more for him?
I mean, probably, but I do think, you also have to factor in a little bit with who you're trading with. The OKC is not going to get snowed on a
No.
deal. I really like that deal for OKC because when you look at the playoffs and what they are going to need, you need stops in the playoffs in half court sets. Alex Caruso is a guy who can get you that. I don't think necessarily that Josh Giddey is a guy who can do that. And then when you look at his style of play, I mean, look, decent player. Certainly look at how he's played this year, double figure score, no doubt about that. But it's just not it's not a guy who I think helps make OKC a championship team. I think you could make the case that Alex Caruso with his defense and his toughness can help make this team. And look, they are going to like OKC is going to need something like that in the long run. And I think you need a veteran defensive presence. I just don't think you're not getting that out of a player like Josh Giddey. It's more so just, a guy who can score in a role capacity. But in this situation, I think clearly OKC got the better of the deal. Yeah, should Chicago have asked for a little more? I think so. I mean, if it's a guy who potentially could help be the difference between a team maybe losing in a conference final, getting the NBA finals, winning a title, that's how highly I think of his defense. I think you need more. The question is, and I'm sure they had that discussion. I
Yeah,
don't think OKC was willing to part with more, though.
yeah, some good points there. Just looking at Giddy, I mean, decent enough numbers for the Thunder last year, and then the playoffs got a little ugly. I mean, he went from 25 minutes a game to 18 minutes a game. Shooting numbers, but I think he was getting pulled for a good chunk of the game or fourth quarters. He was just in some kind of slump. So, like you said, with getting stops in the playoffs, I definitely agree with that. And I think maybe the Bulls should have asked for a little bit more, but Giddey's a young player and more, I guess, in the timeline of what the Bulls are trying to accomplish. So, yeah, some good points there. To wrap things up, so Chicago has not won a playoff series since 2015. Reminder, it is
Ugh.
2025. In the 9 seasons since, they've made just two playoff appearances, with the most recent being in 2022. With other top teams in the East, do you think the Bulls can make a run to at least the sixth seed? And I say six because that would mean avoiding the play-in tournament 7 to 10 seeds. So do you think they can maybe get that high or maybe at least the 7-8 play-in game?
Okay, so this is a real interesting predicament. Do I think they can? Yes. Will they? No. There's a three game spread right now as we're recording this between Miami in terms of win-loss column between Miami and Chicago. So, Miami clearly is in some sort of pickle right now with Jimmy Butler. S-
Understatement.
Yeah, yeah, that's not going to be great. And then Orlando. I expected more out of Orlando this year. Detroit's been surprising. They're playing 500 level. Really, look, I think one of the other big factors, the Sixers, is there any gas left in the tank? Or do they want gas in the tank? I guess maybe that's the better question. They're 18 and 27. They're 2 games off of Chicago. If you're the Bulls, what is it? What is the benefit of you making the playoffs? And that's the thing that I really struggle with. The Sixers, regardless of whether they have 18 wins, finish up with 40, whatever, wherever they end up, that's a team that's trying to win a championship. You know what the direction of the franchise is. Chicago, it's very murky. I really think I've always believed this in the NBA. The NBA is a front runner league. If you're 1, 2, or 3 seed at worst, you're in the discussion probably to get to the finals. You can make that. I mean, everyone's going to try every year, especially in the last few years in the West. People are like, man, the West is so deep. It goes 4, 5, 6 deep. No, there are only a couple teams realistically that are going to get out of the West and possibly make the NBA Finals. If you're not in that discussion, you really have to take a hard look at where you're at. And for a franchise, you just said hasn't won a playoff series since 2015, what are they doing? And I got to say this too. I really think that the Bulls, this is a franchise that had the greatest player of all time on it, in my opinion. Won 6 championships. The level of oomph that franchise has lost really since Jordan walked out the door and that whole crew left, it's staggering for a franchise that was at the top of the charts in sports. And it doesn't seem like there's any desire to get back anywhere close to that. It's hard to draft the greatest player of all time. I mean, that's not falling out of the sky on you. But for the Bulls, okay, let's say you get to the 6th spot. You're going to play the Knicks in the first round, possibly. You're going to lose in 5? Like, what is, at the end of the day, what has that done for you? And then you have a player in Zach LaVine who's going to be 30 next year. I don't see what's the point? What's the upside for the Bulls? I think they need to restructure. That's the best thing for them at this point. It's not a team that's highly aggressive in terms of selling or moving guys around, but they need to do something because if you just stay stagnant in the NBA, you'll stay where you are forever.
Yeah, some good points there. And like you said with Michael Jordan and how the franchise has kind of taken a nosedive since then. I don't know. Maybe he took all the mojo with him with Pippen and Rodman and Phil Jackson. Derrick
Yeah.
Rose, that era probably was the supposed to be the next great dynasty or at least playoff team, and then that injury kind of took a sharp left turn, and now I don't even know what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, okay, you had that one year of Wade and Rondo. You had Jimmy Butler for a couple years. You had DeMar DeRozan. Now he's in Sacramento. So I mean, they have pieces. You're in that big market, but yeah, not really seeing the direction right now. And like you said, they're probably even if they did make a great run in the next few months, what five, like a gentleman's sweep to the Knicks or the Pacers or something. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just a different, you get in the NFL playoffs, maybe something can go right where you catch a couple breaks. I mean, in this era, it's a little tougher to do that. We don't see much of that anymore, but there's at least a way out. Hockey, clearly. Major League Baseball, clearly. If you just get in, a lot of times you can figure out, you can find the secret sauce to make a run. The NBA has never really been structured like that, especially under the current playoff format. It's just not, the best team is going to win a 7-game series almost all the time. And you mentioned Derrick Rose. That's the thing. They had a marquee guy. They had a guy who won MVP, and they weren't really able to do anything off of that. And it's unfortunate. Look, the knee injury was terrible, but you look at what that roster was at one point. That was a team that was contending in the East, but was it really a team that was ever going to get past LeBron James and wherever LeBron was, whether he was with Miami, whether he was with Cleveland? That's just, that's the Eastern Conference title ultimately for them was the unreachable star. No matter how deep they went into the postseason, it was just going to be a hard thing for them to ultimately overcome. And then obviously, the Rose injury, that was it. They had their shot. You look at it, they had their shot in 2011. They get to the conference finals. They lose to LeBron and the Heat in 5 games, and then after that, everything collapsed. I mean, the following year in the playoffs against the Sixers. So, and they haven't been able to really put the genie back in the bottle since.
Yeah, it's just been a weird situation for them, but they might be active at the deadline, like I said earlier, trying to dump off Nikola Vucevic. So we'll see if maybe they can build around Giddey and Levine and Dosunmu and the rest of them. We shall see what they end up doing. So Derek, thanks for your time. It was good talking to you, and we'll maybe try to get you back on in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Larry. Appreciate it, man.
Let's head over to our random stat. It's that time of year, folks. The All-Star reserves were announced on Thursday night. For the East, it'll be Damian Lillard from Milwaukee, Darius Garland from Cleveland, Tyler Hero from Miami, Cade Cunningham from Detroit, Jaylen Brown from Boston, Pascal Siakam from Indiana, and Evan Mobley from Cleveland. Over in the West, we have Anthony Edwards from Minnesota, Jalen Williams from Oklahoma City, James Harden from the LA Clippers, Jaren Jackson Jr. from Memphis, Alperen Şengün from Houston, Anthony Davis from the LA Lakers, but now the Dallas Mavericks, and Victor Wembanyama from San Antonio. Remember, we announced each conference's starting 5 last week. Some of the snubs from the All-Star game entirely were Tyrese Maxey from Philadelphia, LaMelo Ball from Charlotte, Trae Young from Atlanta, and Domantas Sabonis from Sacramento. Ball and Maxey are near the top of the league in points per game. Young leads the NBA in assists per game. Sabonis leads the league in rebounds per game, double-doubles, and he's third in triple-doubles. Some of the obvious choices for Eastern reserves were Brown, Mobley, Garland, and Cunningham. In the West, same goes for Edwards, Williams, Davis, and Wembanyama. But hey, it's the All-Star game. It's a popularity contest for the most part. If everyone got in, then it would be a participation award. We'll see how the starters and this group of reserves perform on Sunday, February 16th as the NBA debuts the new tournament format. Finally, let's go to Game of the Week. For this week's Game of the Week, let's try the Orlando Magic at Sacramento Kings. This game will be on Wednesday, February 5th at 10 o'clock. Despite both teams being in the middle of their respective conferences, the star power on each side should make up for it. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner have both made returns for Orlando after extended injury absences. For Sacramento, the question was whether De'Aaron Fox would be on the team at the end of this week. Spoiler, the question has been answered. Even then, the Kings still have Domantas Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan. Zach LaVine will join them soon. This is the first of 2 games in the season series. The other will be in Orlando on March 29th. Both teams have good rotations, so it's not like either are top-heavy. However, the Magic have had more struggles on the road this season than at home. Give me the Kings 120-115. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you haven't already, make sure to follow me on social media. I have 2 X or Twitter accounts and 2 Instagram accounts. The podcast accounts are under @Diehlman_NBA for both X and Instagram. My personal X account is @LarryDiehlman18, and my personal Instagram is @Mr_Sports18. They're also in the description on Buzzsprout, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you to Derek Jones for being our guest this week on the podcast. Remember, you can follow him on X @DerekJones79 and Instagram @DJones716. And don't forget to spread the word about Diehlman at halftime. Make sure to especially listen for the next 2 episodes, as they will both be special editions. Next week we will do our trade deadline special, and the following week we will do the All-Star Weekend breakdown. So make sure you stay tuned for that. See you next time, fellow Hoops fans.